live on your tablet, phone, and the KUTV app. This is 2 News Live.
Yes, it is. Thanks for joining us on 2 News Live. I'm Brian Schnee. Tuesday, May the 9th. We're going in depth tonight on a couple different topics. Senate President Stuart Adams joins us here live in studio in just a few minutes. We're going to talk about flooding, the gun amendments going to be discussed in the upcoming special session, and of course his recent trip to Ukraine. We also have criminal defense attorney Lazaro here. In just a moment, we'll break down what we're seeing with the latest from the Lori Vallow Daybell trial taking shape for the last few weeks in the state of Idaho. First, though, we're following breaking news of a brush fire in southern Utah. Take a look at your screen. Here's a live look at the area along the Virgin River. This is south of Mall Drive in St. George. Law enforcement personnel, they're telling you to stay away from this area. They don't need distractions. They don't need you on your cell phone, and they don't need you causing any issues for fire crews because this fire continues to threaten more than 100 structures. Luckily, they've reversed course a little bit on the word evacuation. This is always a curious thing of how quickly things go into place and how quickly they fall out. Luckily, no evacuations in place at this point. The cause of this fire remains under investigation. This was reported just before 4 o'clock. It's burned an estimated 40 acres or so. Let's get to one of the big topics here tonight. Prosecutors in the Lori Vallow Daybell murder trial in Idaho have rested their case after more than 5 weeks of testimony. Time flies. Criminal defense attorney Lazaro joining us live here now on 2 News Live. Sky, thank you as always for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Always great to be here.
What do you make of Lori Vallow Daybell taking the opportunity not to testify today?
You know, criminal defendants have the right to testify or not to testify. That is one of the choices that they get to make independent of their attorneys. Now, they can take attorneys' advice on whether or not to do so, but that is a decision they solely get to make. It's always a game day decision. I think in criminal trials, you assess how the evidence comes in and what's out there and decide at that point if it's more helpful or hurtful. I don't know that this necessarily weighs one way or the other. You know, that's kind of up to juries to decide. They may want to hear from her.
Well, time has definitely elapsed since you and I last spoke about this. We were talking about jury selection and will people be skewed by media coverage or watching a Netflix documentary, that sort of thing. But where do things go from here?
Well, the case goes to the jury. So tomorrow they're going to argue jury instructions. That is a set of documents that the jury gets to assess the case and the charges that were brought against her, and then closing arguments will be Thursday, and then it's all up to the jury from that point on, and how they weigh through all the witnesses, and you know, whether or not they're going to give more or less credence to her testifying, or the defense not putting on any witnesses. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Finally, this is only one half of the Daybell clan, if you will, because there will still be a trial for Chad Daybell. Will this trial have any implication on what happens with him?
You know, it may. Prosecutors may, you know, take a different approach. Some things may have worked, some things may have not landed the way they wanted. Same thing, I'm sure the defense is watching this trial saying, you know, this is how I'm going to deal with this witness. I would assume we're going to see at least largely the same sort of law enforcement investigative witnesses in that trial as well. Some of the, you know, circumstantial type character assassination that they have going on may change. But I do think it will impact maybe just the take that the state and the defense, how they deal with different witnesses.
Eyes on this case from all over the nation, all over the world, really. Lazaro, criminal defense attorney, thank you for coming in. Not for the first time, the second time. I think this is the third time we've discussed this case. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, as always.
You can always listen to the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell every day on KUTV 2 News on KUTV.com. Now, the judge has barred cameras from the courtroom. Audio is recorded daily. As we post it, you can hear exactly what happened. Funny how that works. Just head to our website, KUTV.com, and our YouTube page. We are always very active on that platform. Time to go in depth now. Governor Spencer Cox issued a state of emergency April 18th due to flooding in Utah communities. The upcoming special session partially focuses on flooding. What will be discussed as to it pertains to flooding? Well, hopefully some answers here. Senate President Stuart Adams joining us in studio tonight. Thank you for being here, first and foremost. So there's the money for flood mitigation that came and went rather quickly. There was a lot of work to be done with that. Could there have been anything else done previously to secure any more funding?
Well, there might have been. Again, there are 3 items on the call. The first is to extend the governor's emergency order for flooding. If you remember, during COVID, we actually had emergency orders that could be extended indefinitely. And we knew that that wasn't what our founding fathers actually had intended, so we actually restricted that. So in order to continue the emergency order for flooding, we have to meet in a special session. That's what we're doing.
You mentioned 3 pieces of the session.
Yes.
What are the 2 flooding-related discussion points?
Well, that has to do with flooding. The other item is to actually give UDOT some additional money. They need some money for snow plowing, and we had quite a winter, another $20 million to cover the snow plowing costs for this last winter. The third one was House Bill 225. Inadvertently, we restricted people who were working here that aren't citizens from actually carrying a weapon, and that was never the intent of the bill. So occasionally we make a mistake, and I'd hate to ever admit that, but that's what happens, so we need to meet to actually correct that mistake.
You mean we're all human, even up on Capitol Hill? It
We
happens.
are, it does.
Hey, we'll get to 225 in just a second, but what do you make of the flooding situation here as you've seen it in the state of Utah so far this early spring?
Well, there's been some devastating effect. We've seen some homes that have slid. We actually have seen some significant flooding in Kaysville. And you remember the houses that were affected there in the subdivision. But in general, when you look at the amount of snow we've had, we've been very blessed with a lot of snow. And we've been very blessed with, I think, really a pretty moderate spring. And so far, we've kind of dodged a little bit of a bullet, but there's a lot of snow yet to come down, so we're still worried.
Utah Senate President Stuart Adams sounded like a meteorologist tonight. We kind of like that. We'll put you on the payroll. Hey, you were mentioning House Bill 225,
yes,
which there was something missed there, and I know you went into a little bit. But so just to summarize, what changed or what was discussed, and then what will happen in terms of the special session here with that bill?
Well, the bill that was passed would have restricted anybody that was working legally here as a legal worker from actually carrying a gun. And that was never the intent. We've always allowed that to happen, and I think across the United States that's been allowed to happen. And so we restricted that use, and when they found out about it, we heard from a bunch of workers that were here that said that they wanted to follow the law, they wanted to be legal, but they were concerned about the bill that had passed. And sure enough, the sponsor had indicated, and other people that had voted on it, didn't realize there was a provision in it that did that. So we're going to meet, we're going to correct it fast, and hopefully, we don't have to wait for another session.
Well, finally today, the Department of Defense announcing a new security assistance package for the folks in Ukraine. It totals about $1.2 billion. You were among the first state-level delegation to visit Kyiv, Ukraine. Recently, you met with President Zelensky, a number of representatives. What was that trip like for you, and what was accomplished on that trip?
Well, we were the first state delegation, and Utah has always had an international reach. For whatever reason, we've always reached out and internationally. We had a group of philanthropic organizations, one that had donated millions of dollars for food assistance, the other has built over 100 homes, headed to 1,000 homes. It's so great to be a Utah, to see people they're so willing to give. In addition to that, we had people that were doing economic development in the state. But the real changing and the real big deal for me was to see the Ukrainian people, to see the areas where women and children were shot, mass graves that they were put into. When in the occupied areas, we're hearing about kids that are actually kidnapped and taken into Russia. These are war crimes. They're things that aren't naturally had in war. And to see and experience that, and to talk to the Ukrainian people, that was what was most impressive to me.
What is going on over there right now? Because it's fallen partially, in a way, out of a consistent news cycle. There's not as many updates out there. We're not seeing as many reporters go over there. We're not seeing as much messaging. But what did you see, and what is taking place right now?
Well, every night there are still drone strikes, missile strikes on the people. And the air-to-ground missiles are protecting the country, but it's still a war zone. The leaders, we met with almost every minister of every department, from defense to infrastructure, and they're working hard. We talked openly about some of the corruption that existed within the government in the past. They think they've corrected most of that. The old Soviet regime actually allowed for and facilitated corruption. They're aware of it. They're trying to work through it. And they do they really, really, really are appreciative of what America's done. The anti-missile machines that are there actually allow them to function right now. So if you say you're an American, they're very appreciative of what we've done for them. And it's a difficult situation.
Sounds like a good trip nonetheless. Thank you for doing it, of course, on our behalf here as the state of Utah.
Well, I'm very proud to be in Utah, and the efforts that are made and the people that are so generous to help people in other areas of the world.
Before we let you go, obviously flooding top of mind, and then the bill to be discussed, special session, but social media coming up in a topic with Utah. What are you hearing from constituents right now? What are they telling you? What are they saying this May the 9th, 2023? What are Utahns wanting?
Well, I mean, social media is a real challenge. We've seen actually young women's trip to the emergency room. Up until 2010, it was pretty flat. And after 2010, it just went skyrocketing like a hockey stick. And a lot of that's attributed to social media and self-esteem, challenges at school. We've got to find a way to manage that. That's going to be a tough issue, but if anybody can do it, Utah can.
Utah Senate President Stuart Adams, kind enough to join us here on 2 News live in studio tonight. Thank you for being here.
Hey, great to be with you.
Great to talk with you.
You bet.
And glad you had a safe trip.
I'm glad to be home.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. Jet lag, maybe a little bit of that. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hey, let's take a live look out in St. George right now. We've shown you this camera a number of times throughout the last couple hours. If you've been watching our newscasts starting at 4 o'clock, this is what's kind of left of a brush fire burning along the Virgin River, last estimated about 40 acres. That is an estimate. Of course, they'll probably do some mapping on that to take a further look. There were about 100 plus preliminary structures that were threatened. Evacuations were in place at one point. Those have since been called off. So some encouraging news as we enter the evening hours. Chase, I know you've been tracking this for wind speed, for relative humidity. This is kind of the first large-scale publicized incident that you can really see all across the valley in Washington County to start the season.
Big flames that we were seeing, lots of smoke as well. That humidity right around 10%, so it is quite dry in St. George, Washington City. Of course, those wind speeds, not a huge issue, but we're seeing some of that smoke kind of spread to the northeast. Those wind speeds have been about 10 to 15 miles per hour. Give it another 3 hours or so, Brian, we're going to see those winds settle down, and hopefully that's helping firefighters. And that latest live look, not as much smoke. So that
was pretty intense. I mean, we were looking at it, some pretty high flames, dark smoke as well.
During the 4 o'clock newscast, we saw some, black smoke. You don't want to see the color black, and that's what we were seeing near that riverbed.
Well, it makes you wonder what, of course, it was burning, and we hope to have some of that insight coming up a little bit later tonight. What are you looking at in your forecast?
Well, generally we have another storm moving in, but this is not going to be a big weather maker, but our humidity will be increasing, so that's a bit of good news. Temperatures also kind of not changing very much, very pleasant, especially here in northern Utah with highs near 70 degrees, and that's exactly what we should be seeing this time of year, nowhere near the record of 87 back in 1954. Speaking of normals, today is May 9th, and now our normal high temperature is 70 degrees in Salt Lake. Now, going forward, though, as we transition into summer, it's coming soon, folks. By early June, June 4th, our normal high in Salt Lake is 80 degrees. By the end of the month, June 29th, our normal is 90 degrees. So that is the trend over the next 4 to 8 weeks that we'll be tracking. This is our next weather maker. As it begins to roll in, it will be sparking off those showers and storms. Tonight, though, we'll probably notice a little bit more cloud cover increasing. We should stay dry. A little bit more humidity will be increasing as well. And then you'll see by the afternoon, especially 3, 4, 5 o'clock, we'll see some scattered showers and thunderstorms. It's not going to be widespread, hit or miss, a little bit of rain, maybe some gusty winds coming out of these thunderstorms as they lift towards the north. 8 o'clock, maybe a few showers just north of Salt Lake City. Can't rule out a few rumbles of thunder as well. And then by Wednesday night, things will fall apart and will likely be dry for the rest of the work week. Temperatures for tomorrow likely in the upper 60s and low 70s, very similar to today. It might be a few degrees cooler across southwestern Utah, kind of closer to that core of the storm. And that's why you'll be cooler, especially in Cedar City and St. George. 77 in Moab, 71 in Price, Park City, and Evanston, seeing highs near 60 degrees. St. George will be in the upper 70s, but by the end of the week, it gets very warm again. Low 80s on Thursday, mid 80s on Friday with those overnight lows in the 50s. Notice the weekend. I don't think we're going to hit 90, but we'll be close on Saturday. Also, a little bit of moisture moving into southern Utah. I'd say there's a slight chance of a shower or thunderstorm Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Better chance, of course, over the mountains, but the pattern is for these pop-up storms and warmer temperatures. Salt Lake hovering near 70 degrees for the rest of the week. Again, a slight chance for a thunderstorm. Those overnight lows in the upper 40s. As we head into the weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, there could be a stray shower or a thunderstorm. Still wouldn't change any outdoor plans. I know it is the weekend. It is Mother's Day. Maybe you're going on a hike or being outdoors. Just keep your eyes to the sky. It's going to be in the afternoon. Those rain chances around 20%, and they'll stay right around 20% Monday and Tuesday. But it looks like we'll get very close to 80 degrees as we head into next week. So not too warm, Brian. But definitely above normal coming in just a few more days.
You doing some yard work on Mother's Day?
I did all my yard work today. Got everything done. But we'll see. I think I'm going to go to my mom's, and she might put me to work on her yard. And it's Mother's Day, so I have to say yes.
As she should.
That's right.
You'll be ready for it.
Anything for Mom.
That's right. Well, a landslide wiping out a trail in the Draper foothills. Here's some video of the Maple Hollow downhill mountain bike trail destroyed by this landslide. Other trails were open this morning. This was video just shared today. The reason why we bring it up, yesterday on 2 News Live, I spoke with the Draper City Parks and Recreation Director about the challenges that they're facing in their trail system. They have a mighty trail system, over 100 miles of trails, and they've had to deal with some issues because of the runoff, the erosion,
right.
And there's a lot of people that use those trails. Find this article, KUTV.com. Do you head out there?
To Draper or to the trails? I've been holding off on the trails a little bit. You know, we talk about all these like little wet slides, avalanches. I feel like I've been just kind of taking it easy, but calling my name maybe by this weekend, especially as things begin to dry out along some of those foothill trails.
Yeah, and some more of that stable forecast you've been looking at. Temperatures consistently in the 70s is always nice compared to that.
Helps out just a bit.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us today. Of course, thanks to our special guests, Sky Lazaro, Utah Senate President Stuart Adams. Thanks for stopping by. Of course, everyone behind the scenes that makes this show run, and even you, Chase. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.